Hey, my name is James. Today's question comes from Reddit, and someone is asking about OneTrust integration with Shopify and asked about 3 scenarios. That is, injecting OneTrust via Google Tag Manager, using OneTrust Shopify app to inject OneTrust into Shopify, or hard coding OneTrust into the banner on the page. Now, all of these options are going to work for you, but it is choosing the best option for your setup, which is important. So let me run through the 2 that I would recommend that you look at first, and that is option 1 and option 3. But they're not going to work in every single scenario. So you need to consider your scenario. So option 1, injecting the banner script via Google Tag Manager. So there are obviously 2 ways you can do that inside of Google Tag Manager. You can just use the custom HTML script, or you can use the OneTrust template from the template gallery. So both of these options are going to work. Then, of course, you can also inject the script directly into the website. So the considerations that you're going to want to make before you choose an option is, are you using auto blocking in OneTrust? And are you using consent rate optimization, specifically the cross-domain consent inside of OneTrust? Those 2 things are your biggest considerations. If you are using auto blocking, then option 3, hard coding OneTrust into the head of your website, is going to be the best option for you, because what you're going to want to do is take the OneTrust script with the auto blocking enabled. That is enabled in the script, so you will need to make sure that you select that option, publish the script, and then copy the script and then paste that script into your head. And you're going to want to do that above any other script that you have there. So if you have a Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, any other script that is placed inside your website, you're going to want to put that OneTrust script above all the others. Now, auto blocking I find to be quite a difficult thing to manage, especially if you're managing multiple websites and you have multiple people working on those websites. It can be quite difficult, and things can fall through the cracks. So if you are the person managing the website and auto blocking works for you, then go for it. If you have multiple websites, auto blocking might not be the way forward. What you may want to do then is option 1, which is inject the banner via Google Tag Manager and use the template from within the template gallery for OneTrust. What you're then going to want to do is make sure that you move all your scripts to inside of Google Tag Manager, and what you have on your store, on your website, is only the Google Tag Manager script firing. Then you need to configure each one of your tags for consent so that Google Tag Manager will listen to OneTrust when someone makes a selection. What that looks like is using the firing triggers that OneTrust provide to you via a JSON file that you can upload into your Google Tag Manager account, and you can find that on myOneTrust.com. You import that, you'll have the targeting, firing trigger, performance, and so on. If you've set up custom groupings inside your OneTrust account, then you will need to add those manually. You can just copy out one of those triggers and then change the name and then change the code in which it will be fired. But all of that information is on my OneTrust, so you can go and grab it from there. Make sure that for all your main tags, you would add the firing triggers to those. And then for conversion tags, if you have Google Consent Mode activated inside your OneTrust, which I would recommend you do, then for all your conversion tags, you can just use the built-in consent option within Google Tag Manager that maps to the firing trigger that you have available. So you'll go do that mapping with inside OneTrust, and then when you come to set up your conversion, you will just say it requires additional consent, and then you would add For this, it's analytics storage because it's GA4, but analytics storage would map to my performance firing trigger. So that's the best way that I found to actually map those across like that. If you're using consent rate optimization and specifically cross-domain consent, you are going to need to add the tag for OneTrust as a custom HTML tag and not as the OneTrust tag from the template gallery. And there is quite a lot of setup which goes with setting up that cross-domain consent. So if you want to hear more about it, please just drop a comment below that someone wants to hear about it, and I will make a video explaining the full process of setting up cross-domain consent. It is a little bit complicated, but it's basically templated. So I can just provide you with what I've done, and you can go mimic that on your own website and just change a few of the settings, and you'll be able to get cross-domain consent working. A consideration that you will need to make if you add in the script into the head of the site and you're using auto-blocking, you are still going to have to do this setup inside of Google Tag Manager so that it listens to the consent options that someone makes inside of OneTrust. Where you can slip up is you need to make sure that Google Tag Manager can fire and it's not being automatically blocked by the auto-blocking. And the reason for that is that if you don't fire Google Tag Manager, regardless of what someone's preferences are, they might choose analytics and not marketing. And because Google Tag Manager is getting blocked in analytics, anything that's inside your Google Tag Manager will not fire. So you need to make sure that your Google Tag Manager is actually firing, but each of your tags inside of Google Tag Manager is set for consent. So that's quite important. Those are the two options that I would recommend. What I would say is that it is specific to your setup. How I set up OneTrust when I'm setting up a website is that I make sure that all the tags are moved inside of Google Tag Manager first. So anything that's firing on the website that is not strictly necessary is moved inside of Google Tag Manager. I then turn auto blocking off inside OneTrust. I add the OneTrust template from the template gallery. I set up the template, and then I set up all my consent inside of Google Tag Manager so that Google Tag Manager will fire when someone visits the site. But all of these options here won't fire until someone actually makes a selection. This is what the OneTrust tag is going to look like when you have set it up. The few things that you need to take note of is the data domain script here. That is going to be found inside when you publish your script, it's going to be found there. I'm going to bring it up for you. Here is when you publish your script, this is what it's going to look like. Your data domain script here is everything between the quotes. It's just the number between the quotes. And you're going to want to copy that out just as it is, and then come inside here and paste just that. So you won't have the quotes in it. It'll just be from the one number to the other number. You're also going to want to make sure that your source URL is selected correctly, and that you will find in here as well. So you can see CDN UK West.OneTrust. You're going to want to make sure that CDN UK West is selected. Determine the language from the HTML. That's if you have different languages. It is initially going to determine the language from the browser. If you want it to determine the language from the HTML, and that's if you're using like some sort of selection box which just changes the language for people, and when it changes the language, it'll go from like, EN to ES or something like that. And then you'd want to use the HTML because then it'll just change OneTrust. You're going to want to make sure that you've selected all the languages because it won't change it if you haven't selected the languages. Then I activate consent mode, and I set all my consent as default off. I say no additional consent required, and then I fire it on consent initialization for all pages for the specific domain. So what you need to remember is that when you scan a website in OneTrust, it is scanned for a specific domain. It's not scanned for all. It's not going to work on all domains. So there are going to be two ways to find out. So once you've published this tag, so you see it bringing up the little OneTrust banner where you can accept and reject. If you move to another page and it brings up the banner again, so it's not remembering the settings that you've selected from the previous page, there are two things that could be wrong. The first thing that could be wrong is that this data domain script is pasted incorrectly. So you're going to want to go and make sure that you have the right data domain script for the domain that it's firing on. The second thing is you could have used the wrong domain. So you could have scanned example.com, but you're actually trying to put it on example2.com. And it's not going to work. So you need to make sure that you scan the website that you're wanting to show the banner on, the specific website, and then you use that data domain script to make sure that it fires on that website. If the data domain script is wrong or the data domain script is for a different domain, then what you're going to see on the front end is every time you click on a new page, it's going to bring up OneTrust. It's not going to remember those settings. It's just going to bring up the banner again, and you're going to have to make a consent selection again. So you're going to want to make sure that you have scanned the correct site and put the data domain script in. Once you've saved this, then you can obviously publish it and then preview. If you have any other questions, please leave it in the comments. I'm happy to make a video on anything else that you need explanation for. Otherwise, subscribe to this channel. I try to make content weekly on all the questions that people have that I can answer. Thanks for watching.